in my laptop. It's good. All right. So you got to click on the.
Is there a delay or something?
Can folks see me online? Please stand by on this.
Yeah, so there's a 45 seconds delay.
Yeah, I can see the video.
You talk.
Good. Okay. All right. So what about the audio? Will they also hear it with a delay?
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll be synced.
Well, yeah. It's
Okay.
Because YouTube does content filtering.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It's funny because we have Anna from YouTube online, and she's.
No, I asked her. There's no way that we can.
Okay. So first of all, everybody, thank you for coming. I know it's a very difficult week, and Nepal is in our thoughts. And I'm sure you're doing everything you can from your own way, but we thought we can do, bring a little bit of MIT spirit to the efforts and see what we can do proactively. And we have a great track record in working in Haiti, for example. Companies came out looking at crowdsourcing of Creole to English translation and providing services for local services. We have, great work that was done here after the Fukushima disaster, and a project that Joe Ito is supporting called Safecast, which is tracking of radioactive radiation in different parts of the country using crowdsourced Geiger counters, and it's still being used. And there's some fantastic examples of what has come out of this, out of MIT and Media Lab. Now we're here together. We don't know what we are doing. I think it's just the beginning. It's very confusing for all of us. But since we sent out the email, we have received a tremendous response, and we are most likely to have the Nepali Student Association co-host this event. And also, we have a lot of people online. We have people like Anna Okhanova from who's our liaison for the Media Lab at Google YouTube, and she has worked really hard to bring in people from her network. She's helping us. And Joey is working with us through New York Times, and the New York Times R&D team is engaging with us. Purvi Thakur, who just wrote her article just came out today in New York Times. She's on the ground in Kathmandu, and she's sharing her stream, data stream and photo stream with us. And she's going to put in touch with a few other groups who are working in parallel. So that's going to be coming on board very soon. This is all coming in real time, so I don't have all the information right now. So I thought what we could do today is spend the first hour, just get a sense of where we are, and we'll have some updates. And then the stream online is already going on. And in a kind of a classic crowdsourcing manner, we have a open Google Doc. So I encourage all of you to open your laptop with the Google Doc and write your thoughts in real time, even if they're unfiltered. And later on, we'll figure out how to put them all together. And then I guess in the second half of this meeting, we'll split into groups based on your interest and your passion of what we can do in various places. So to get started, Nikhil, do you want to say something before we get started?
Yeah, so we'll have Vigyan present about current work that the MIT Nepali Student Association and other associations in the Boston area have done. So he'll give a brief presentation on what's been done, and after that, as Amish mentioned, we'll split into multiple groups and we'll brainstorm about ideas and form teams. So I'll hand it over to Vigyan.
Can this be projected now?
Yes. So we are switching to projector now, and he'll present the current work.
Should I just do this one?
Yes.
Should we just go out there?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to turn on the display.
Oh, the projector, okay.
Yeah.
The projector was not on. Okay. All right. So it'll take a second. So those of you, can they still hear me? They cannot hear me anymore.
They can hear you.
They can still hear you. So if you're online or if you're local, If you look at the Google Doc, which is tiny.cc/MIT Nepal hack, you'll see that we have several folks who have already entered information about sources available. So make yourself familiar with some of those resources as you're out there. For example, Will from Planet Labs, which is an amazing company. So Will is going to help us get us data, which is it's a satellite company. They have many microsatellites in orbit, and they can give us updates every 24 hours of satellite data. And if we can mine that, for example, and do change detection over time, I think that would be very useful for any destruction mapping, any migration mapping, any rehabilitation, and so on. And there are many other resources that you can see that are available. And what is important to remember is, I'm sure you'll emphasize this, it's not just about what's happening this week, but what could happen over the next 1 year. I think that's the key, because while it's in the news, of course, our attention will be focused on Nepal, but we want to make sure folks are thinking about it for the whole year. So go ahead.
Sure. So shall I just start? Yeah.
So does anyone turn on his camera? Or
No, it's
right?
sharing the screen,
Okay.
so they
Yeah.
can hear his voice.
Well, first of all, I really want to thank the Media Lab for leading this effort, and especially Dr. Roskar and Nikhil, and everyone who are joining us either in this room or from across the globe. So for this part, so I'm Bigyan Bista. I'm a doctoral candidate at MIT. I work over at the Koch Institute, and I'm one of the, I think, roughly 16 or 17 students from Nepal who are at MIT right now. And our association is called Miteri. So to say that this is a difficult time for us, I think is an understatement. I think for the last 5 days or so, I mean, we've been frantically trying to assess the situation on the ground. And I would say, especially those first 5 or 6 hours of not being able to get in touch with anyone, parents, loved ones, I mean, that was a really difficult and painful period. And I think so just to give you a sense of the gravity of the situation on the ground, I pulled up some key figures, key facts related to the earthquake. So, as you already know, a massive 7.8 magnitude earthquake hit Nepal, and that has almost like devastated a big chunk of the country. So I've been following the United Nations report almost on a daily basis, and I also encourage you to do the same, because that's been one of the most comprehensive source, which is updated daily as they assess the situation on the ground, and they assess the kinds of responses that are needed. So they just launched an urgent appeal for $415 million, and that's just for the next 3 months. And that's for immediate assistance to these people. 8 million people, that's close to 30% of our population. So far, almost 2.8 million Nepalis have been displaced. And that's mainly the result of destruction of houses, more than 130,000, and the numbers are expected to rise. Like, this number only captures the total destruction of houses. There are partially destroyed houses, and that number is in the 80,000 to 100,000. So almost about 4.2 million people are in urgent need of water, sanitation, and hygiene support. There's also about 3.5 million people who need food assistance, and of these, 1.4 million need immediate assistance. And beyond just the loss of lives, I mean, the economic impact is also going to be devastating in the long run. The total economic losses are expected to exceed Nepal's GDP, actually. And this is not counting all the reconstruction effort. what really scares me is the final death toll that is being projected by some groups. It might actually cross 25,000. The upper estimate is almost 50,000, based on different simulations that different groups have done from different parts of the world. So I will be posting these slides on the Google Doc so that people can access them. I just wanted to give you a sense of what we've been doing for the past 4 or 5 days. So I had never seen like this much coming together from Nepalis all across the world in the last couple of days. We have had friends from Germany, like all over the EU, US, Australia, I mean, everywhere. Everyone came together. They started building connections, and then we started to really get into the coordination of different relief efforts that are ongoing. So listed here are some of the efforts that I was fortunate to be a part of, at least 3 or 4 of them, and some other ones that you will also find very useful. So if I can, I was also hoping to at least show you like what these websites are about so that there's no redundancy of effort, because a lot of the things that you might also be thinking of might have already been done, especially in the mapping projects, if that relates to Kathmandu. Whereas the kinds of mapping like help that we can get would be most useful if it's channeled towards parts that are outside Kathmandu, the more remote parts of villages that the government or us, like we have no idea what the total damage actually is. So that's where the high resolution geospatial analysis like that will be really helpful. Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to click on the links, but I'll be posting these right after I'm done with the talk. But basically this first link, nepalquake.org, it was actually spearheaded by a recent MIT alum from urban studies and planning, who is now a postdoc at Brown. So we have a big group, big Google group, which is like more than half the members are actually on the ground and the other half all across the world. So we get a lot of updates from the ground, and we try to respond like to those needs as much as possible. So that link definitely has a lot of useful data. And one thing this group has managed to do really well is provide a really detailed infrastructure map of all of Kathmandu. Because there was a group in Kathmandu called this third link, Kathmandu Living Labs, which had been working in Kathmandu for the last 2 years, just making really detailed maps of the Kathmandu Valley. That included physical infrastructure and everything. So really quickly, our group was able to mobilize people to go to those key infrastructure areas, take geotag images, and report back to us. And we were able to pin those on all over the map. So if you go to that link and if you look at, there's a map that you will find, which we have provided to the Kathmandu Valley Authority. So the government actually found this really useful, and now they are asking us to do something similar for parts outside of Kathmandu. The second link, so this was an effort from our friends in the EU and some of us. So what this group really quickly realized was that there will be a lot of people throwing in relief materials. There will be a lot of people who will be needing those, but there is no coordination. So that link is really about matching those needs and supplies. So now people can just go to that site and they can say, I need this, and someone else will say, I'll supply that. So but that site can, I think, still use some help. If any of you are developers, if you can make some really useful tools like within that platform, which facilitates, because the problem is that some people may have supplies, some people might need the supplies, but people who have the supplies may not be able to transport. So that's like another third wheel in this arrangement. So we're really trying to make it a coordinated effort for people to find the right partners. So this is the third group, which has done extremely like phenomenal work. It's actually a Ushahidi platform. So they had been building this for a while, and really, I mean, it helped out a lot, like in this really painful period that Kathmandu had seen. The other site is Humanity Road. So this is more of an aggregator of real-time updates from social media. So some of the links may not be vetted or so on, but these are, as they appear on social media, these are being aggregated. So that's another really useful way to see the situation unfold. The other group, so this is a very active group on Facebook. It's called Nepal Earthquake Relief Volunteers. If you type in that on Facebook, you'll find their page. So what they are trying to do is, if anyone still has cell phone connection in the villages or internet connection, if they come to this group and they say, we need volunteers in this village, this group coordinates those volunteers. Because otherwise, there are people who are trying to help, but they're not sure where they should go first, or where their help will be most utilized. The second last group, that's us at MIT. So we have been running some fundraising on different platforms like third-party sites, Indiegogo, and so forth. But rather than paying platform fees and so on, we really wanted to make sure that 100% of donations go to charities of our choice that we know are working on the ground, and some of which are actually run by MIT and Harvard alums, our friends. So we started this in-house platform. If you go to this site, what we're trying to do is not just raise donations from MIT community, but also give regular updates on all of these different links. That link also has a tab called Beyond Donations. So if you go to Beyond Donations, we are actually linking these other sites on that page. So you can just go and there you'll see tabs like Lend a Hand, or these are the ways you can volunteer your technical skills and expertise and labor. So all of those will be available on the Miteri website. And in the long run, we really want to make this MIT-based platform where different groups from MIT can come and then help us as we go from immediate relief to intermediate response and a long-term reconstruction and rebuilding. And lastly, this group, Students for Nepal, so that's also on Facebook. But this was spearheaded by us, Harvard students, and Fletcher. Like those three were the founding groups. And now this has expanded to Dartmouth, Columbia, Brown, and several other groups where there's a significant Nepali student population. And this group is not just focused on the immediate fundraising, but we're actually thinking long-term as well. Because the policy schools provide platforms that these other communities don't. As I told you before, the UN has appealed for $415 million for immediate assistance. So far, only 53 million has been pledged by all countries in the world. And the government actually has received less than 10 million in cash so far. So that's really not a lot. In fact, the country which gave Nepal $1 million check on the first day was Bhutan. So I think I thought of giving you some ideas because I've been involved in like various groups on campus. Like all of our community has been chipping in a lot. I'm also involved like as a member in Slack teams from Nepal or from EU and so forth. So just seeing all the efforts, these were like some of the points I came up with where I see a lot of potential for Media Lab members to help. So one idea could be this sort of interface that lets users walk through almost like a Google Street View to these damaged parts of the country using satellite images. So that could be from Digital Globe or other partner organizations. It could also be other images that are found online, or if they are geotagged, that's even better. And if that actually helps, we're willing to mobilize people on the ground who will go to different parts and take images and send back to us. And there's definitely the crowdsourced incident reporting. Like if all of that could be put together in a very user-friendly interface, that would be very helpful. The second is a kind of utility that can translate a rapidly changing website like WordPress. Because so far, all the websites I showed you, you could see the bias towards English. And even when most of the people on the ground who have been affected do not speak, write, or understand English, right? So you can see this need of like.
And the mobile phones can also do Nepalese, so the Android phones can.
So some of them actually can.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. So you can actually, yeah, the Android phones will definitely do that. So this will be.
So as long as the
great
content is
help.
Nepalese,
Exactly.
local people can use it.
Yes, yeah. The third thing would be, as I said, the disaster mapping itself, especially outside Kathmandu. Mainly these two districts, which are in the northeast of Kathmandu, are severely affected, and we do not know the extent of damages. And the damages extend beyond destruction of houses. That a lot of the damages are actually landslides that have happened. And these districts are the districts where most of the rivers from the Himalayas flow through on their way to India. So the landslides, there's a significant risk that they will block those rivers, and we might have another flood situation, which will again wipe out many other villages. So that's why I think detecting these kinds of damages will be extremely helpful. That goes beyond just destroyed houses. So the other thing that we are doing, and for the last 24 hours, we've been in talks with various different groups. So what happened in the immediate aftermath, maybe after 48 hours or so, is various kinds of supplies were sent from Kathmandu to different districts. I think right now there are 13 districts that have been affected. One problem that we have in Nepal, like which makes all of this even worse, is we just came out of a civil war that extended for 10 years because of the Maoist rebels and their fight with the monarchy. And we haven't been able to elect local officials for the last, like since 2006, actually. So it's been really centralized. Everything is centralized. There are no good local bodies to be taking care of these things. So what has happened in the last 24 to 48 hours is each district now has a relief committee. And what we are asking all the volunteers, all the supply agencies, is to coordinate their efforts through those committees. Because that way it makes it really easy for us to keep an inventory portal. Because if everyone goes through that committee, then we know exactly what supplies came, what are abundant, and what's missing, and which parts in that district have been served and which ones have not. So that portal. So right now we're in talks with Ministry of Health and Home Ministry, both of them. And I think Home Ministry actually had just came up with a beta version. I'll also include that link in the Google Doc, and you can go and look. And then if you can also help in building this portal, that would be fantastic.
Is that something that's being built here?
No, so this is home base. So all of this is being done in Nepal with, I think, 2 different groups. But we have, I believe, yeah, some of them are like Harvard and MIT alums. So we're really trying to coordinate on that as well. Because they had sent me an email asking for PHP developers for this project. So I think they are definitely looking for volunteers. The other one that the UN report clearly outlined is actually the water and sanitation hygiene issue. That's going to have a big effect, and not just probably within a week, and definitely within a 3-month period. I mean, this is going to be a really big problem. Access to clean water. There are no like toilets at all. And because of the earthquake, there's a chance that there's significant contamination in the groundwater system. So people are very afraid to use like tap water and so on. So we might run into access to clean water problem. So
just to add one point, like in about 6 weeks, monsoon is going to start,
oh, yeah.
and that's going to like really make things worse. And it's going to last for 2 months.
Yeah. So that really will become a public health hazard at that point. So from a disaster management perspective, I think this is a really key thing to look at. So the other thing we're also asking help for.
Yeah, question.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if I can also request while
Yeah,
short. So while you're talking, we're actually taking notes in the Google Docs. Anybody's online. So for example, we wrote down the 4 challenges you stated, which is the walkthrough, translation, disaster mapping, inventory mapping. So we have already listed it there.
I see.
So while Bigyan is talking, feel free to edit that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if you have any questions, like
Yeah.
online people asking questions, okay, you're doing inventory mapping, but what's the best portal to get started for that? So feel free to do this in parallel. We don't
Yeah.
have to do it in a classical baton passing, like one person is
Yeah.
speaking, he waits,
Yeah.
and the next person starts. We
In
just
fact,
want to
yeah,
blast
if
through
you,
it
yeah,
while he's
Yeah.
talking. So please feel free to use the Google
sure.
Doc.
Yeah. Very good point. Thank
People
you.
online are already participating.
Okay. So the other thing we're also seeking help is in setting up internet or communication access itself, because we do not know how much of the communication channel has been affected in some of these remote areas. So it would be really useful to have some like internet connection or even communication access in these villages so that we can actually stay connected, even with the volunteers or the people on the ground. The other thing is, so Twitter unfortunately is not that active like in Nepal. I mean, it's only in like certain pockets of the urban areas, whereas Facebook is immensely popular. So if we can have tools that does like mining Facebook for these real-time updates on needs and responses, I think that will also be very useful to us, like to track where help is going and which places have not received help at all.
Just a quick
Sure.
point on that mining Facebook. At least in my network and my wife's network, all the people that are helping out there and posting updates, most of them are in Nepali. So just
Yeah, exactly.
Nepali language.
Yeah, even when they're typing, yeah, it's
the
yeah,
entire text to say we need
Yes,
these, we
yeah.
need these, or
Right.
this is the update, this
Yeah.
is my phone number, RAM from this. All
Yeah,
that
so
entire
yeah.
text.
that could be
Yes,
another
and-
challenge.
Yeah, which was similar challenge during the Haitian
Yes,
crisis
yeah,
as well.
Creole. and-
Creole
yeah.
during the show.
And the other thing, yeah, we're in all of this immediate relief effort, one thing to really lose track of is the transparency in aid. And that's something we have not forgotten. So I think it would be really good to have one unified platform which is tracking aid as it's flowing to the government or even individual agencies. I think that will become very important in the long run. And there's a lot of interest. Every time I go to Facebook, there's a lot of mistrust on NGOs, INGOs, or government. I mean, it's all equal. So no one really trusts that they are being supplied with all the transparency that they expect. So I think that this will become very important in the long run. So I try to put these in like bins, like as main categories for assistance. And I think I actually got some of these categories from the UN report itself. So food and shelter, like that's becoming a big issue, like immediately. There are more than 3 million people who need food, like right now. Medical needs, on this front, there's not enough manpower in Nepal. I mean, a lot of the medical doctors just come abroad, like they are either in the US, Australia, UK, and so forth. So just the doctors within the country, I mean, they are really burdened. And besides doctors, it's also the medical camps or health centers or hospitals. I mean, everyone's really stretched. I see constant appeals for blood drive, like they are looking for particular blood type, and we have no mechanism to really coordinate that. So medical need. Like that's another big category. And as I've been focusing on this one, the water, sanitation, and hygiene. I really think like that's becoming a crucial issue to focus on.
Can I add a point? So my wife is a physician, and then she has friends, physician friends back in Nepal, and just even now, like people have already started suffering from diarrheal diseases, and people are very afraid that it could turn into like could change into a cholera. If that happens, that's going to be a huge disaster.
Oh, and I should mention, so in these villages where I said there were destruction of houses, it's not just the houses, it's also the sheds that have domesticated animals, right? And people in the rural villages have a tendency of storing food in clay pots. So all of that is gone. So right now they don't have a roof over their head, they don't have access to food. All their domesticated pets, I mean, they're all gone. Like they have absolutely nothing. And to make the matter worse, it has been raining for the last couple of days in many parts. So, I mean, it's really a dire situation. So the fourth
And
bucket
right now it's somewhat summertime, but the weather will change very quickly.
absolutely, yeah. As he said, yeah,
So
within
it's just
6
gonna be,
weeks,
like,
yeah, it's
raining
going to
every
be
day.
a monsoon for 3
There'll be
month
a lot of landslides, I think.
period. Yeah. So the fourth bin that I think is also very important is the energy issue. Um, as I said, I mean, most of these places are cut off. There's no electricity. All the power lines are down. Um, People will run into problems with diesel or petrol and all the gas stuff. For the time being, they may have some firewood to go by, but in probably a 3 month period, yeah, that's going to be a big problem. And fifth, yeah, as I've been saying, just communication. I think being able to access either internet or telephone would really help in coordinating this relief effort. And I would say that overall, this has really become a logistics issue. There's a lot of lack of coordination on the ground. The government is definitely stretched. Like our international airport has been congested ever since Saturday with the constant inflow of aid workers, INGOs, and commercial airlines. I think, I mean, right now the focus is definitely to let the aid agencies come in, but some of them are coming with no clearance or without any communication. So that's really putting a big burden on the government also. And other than that, I mean, like a supply chain issue, right? I mean, there are so many groups involved, yet there's really no coordination on who's getting what. So I think that's, yeah, I still think, yeah, if we can figure some way of re-engineering that logistic aspect, yeah, that would be very helpful. Yeah, I think you have a question.
Question, on a global basis, major players in this kind of a situation, Gates Foundation, major individuals, wealthy individuals, is there any identification of who's become aware and has stepped up to the plate so far?
So
like
far,
the Gates Foundation to start out with.
sure, yeah. So Gates Foundation hasn't given that much. So as far as I know, Facebook actually donated, I think, $2 million into matching donations. So far, the biggest helps have come through the UN agencies. And if we take aid, like the expected aid as a proportion of nation's GDP, I mean, it's really dismal. I mean, we actually made that graph, and the wealthy nations are definitely not pulling their weight. Like the kind of help they could be providing, it definitely has not reached the country. Yeah.
So there's an awful lot of room at the top.
Absolutely.
At the global
Yep.
level
Yes.
for a
Yep.
lot to come together that hasn't happened.
Yes. So we actually made an infographic of the 20 biggest economies in the world and what they could be giving just to contribute to the $415 million. And it's tiny.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened.
And just to add to that, as you mentioned, there is a lot of mistrust in Facebook as well that says, don't just blindly donate to these NGOs, or it may not flow transparently. And so what at least me and my wife have been doing is we go through our network, and there are several people in these small villages, and they identify and say, hey, we need a few hundred tents because the entire village is destroyed. There are no houses, and it's going to cost about $1,000. So we raised about $1,000 for yesterday, and we sent it. And that's like an immediate need that we're doing, just right there, but not as a
Absolutely. Yeah.
coordinated.
It would seem there are about 1,800 billionaires in the world. And it would seem that in time, there will be, if we can find a way to have a compatible, trusting environment with the major individuals who are in a position to step up, probably will.
Sure.
But we just need to create the situation for us.
Yeah, I think we have to think about how we can bring MIT to the solution.
Absolutely.
And so I think if you think creatively about, if we can map, for example, where the aid is given and where aid is required, I think we can use that as a tool to influence those things. But I don't think in this room we should be talking about, who to get funding from and so on. I think those are at different scale. I think here we are focusing more on, what can we do to influence those people's minds? How can we make a stronger emotional connection, or how can we create information that makes it logistics easier and so on.
Can you talk about electricity and that whole process and where it's at right now? What's the trajectory? How much of what you talked about right now relies on electricity for it to be able to, for all of these web-enabled tools to be able to function?
So that's a really hard question at this point. I mean, at least in the urban areas, there was a period where there were black spots. So people were quick to report, and some of the parts already have restorement, like of the electricity outage. But that's not a privilege that these other parts have, especially because the communication itself is down, like with no telephone access. So I'm actually not sure, how.
So within Kathmandu, honestly, everything is electrified. Within Kathmandu. But for the first few days, the government was not supplying electricity because I think they were afraid of live wires being down, and you could start fires and people had like electric shocks and all those things. So they just like completely shut it down. But now they're beginning to supply electricity slowly. That was true with water too. Nobody got water for like 3 days. That would have been disastrous if it was like in Boston, because nobody has extra tank. But in Nepal, every house has, the way it works is every house has a reservoir tank under the ground, and they don't necessarily getting water 24 hours. They get certain times of the day, so that means they actually have a reservoir. That actually saved people. Like even my brother's families, they survived on that water for 3 days. But going back to your point, but if once you go outside Kathmandu, a lot of the villages don't even have electricity on a constant basis. Some of them might have, maybe solar power to power their cell phones. Some of them might have electricity, and the poles could have been down. So that's going to take a long time. So it's very